All right, stand by. 10 seconds.
Ready, camera,
Talent.
Ready, camera.
And cue talent.
1.
Roll for record.
Bill Clinton has the skills to pay the bills. I'm John Phillips, and this is The Rundown. The release of this week, the hotly anticipated political bombshell book, Clinton Cash, has the Hillary campaign scrambling to do damage control, but Bubba isn't helping. That's why they packed him off to Africa like Toto to put hearing aids into orphans. But NBC still managed to track him down and, in spite of all of their ridiculously favorable coverage of his charity work, asked enough real questions for Bill to get himself and Hillary in some hot water. First off, Bill claims that there's been a, quote, very deliberate attempt to take the foundation down, framing any concern Americans have over massive donations to the Clinton Foundation from those with business before the State Department as simple partisan hackery. He went on to say that, quote, there's no doubt in my mind that we have never done anything knowingly inappropriate in terms of taking money to influence any kind of American government policy that just hasn't happened. It reminds me of that George Costanza scene from Seinfeld where he said, what, was having sex with the maid at my desk wrong? If I would have known that, I wouldn't have done that. I could see Bill Clinton having that logic. Do you hear that? They never did anything knowingly inappropriate. Perhaps most damagingly, he defended his public speaking fees, which ballooned from the huge to the insane $500,000 or more per speech after Hillary became Secretary of State. Quote, I work hard on this, he said. I spend a couple of hours a day just doing the research. People like hearing me speak, and I have turned down a lot of them, end quote. Just to make sure you heard that correctly, he gets paid $500,000 for a couple of hours. He's practically a coal miner. Hookers don't even get that hourly rate, and Bill Clinton knows. When asked if he'll continue to cash in while Hillary runs, he said, oh yeah, I gotta pay our bills. The wife's hobby isn't cheap, you know. The State Department is backing the Clintons up, sort of, kind of. Spokesman Jeff Rathke said, we're not aware of any evidence that actions taken by Secretary of Clinton were influenced by donations to the Clinton Foundation or speech or honoraria for former President Clinton. You got it? They're not aware of any evidence, which shouldn't surprise anyone because the State Department wasn't in charge of Hillary's infamously purged email accounts, meaning that she could handily destroy any evidence before they got near it. Hillary's agreed to testify before Congress, finally, on the email question, but she's only going to show up because she's a busy lady. That's it, not twice, once. Is America finally realizing the Clintons are crooked, or will they weather the scandal as they have with so many others? To explore this question and much, much more, we turn to our pal, Scott Ott, the PJTV contributor from his home studio in Dallas, Texas. And right beside me in sunny Southern California is the man who runs more miles before you wake up, PJTV contributor Stephen Kruiser. The more things change, Stephen, the more things remain the same. The Clintons just can't help themselves, and they just can't help sticking their foot in their mouth when they're asked about it, can they?
Well, first, 3/4 of the audience is sitting there for your initial culture reference saying, Toto was in Kansas, not in Africa, but that was good.
The band.
Yes, Toto the band. In the Clintons' telling of this story, they are spotless lambs who have somehow created a cottage industry of thousands of people who, for decades, manufacture reasons to be mad at them and deliberately attack them. They're always deliberately attacked. They're from the vast right-wing conspiracy until now. That's their version of the story. If you're going to go a little Occam's razor here, you're saying, maybe they're prompting some of this. That seems more plausible, but I don't know. The thing is, there are a lot of us political junkies who remember the Clinton fatigue from all that time ago and remember what it was like. And there's a whole new class of voters that they're going after right now and that Hillary's going after, despite the fact that she's, 704 at the moment. They're going after younger voters who don't remember most of that stuff. And I don't know if it's getting the play in the press that it gets talked about, but a lot of it is just like, it's rather dismissive. I mean, right before we came on air, we had MSNBC on out there, and all the things going on in the world today, they're talking about Deflategate from the Super Bowl act, because they don't want to hit any of the hot button issues. So I don't think it's getting the kind of press right now yet that will make it damaging to them, because they're really good at this plausible denial, knowingly inappropriate.
Well, any negative coverage towards the Clintons is seen as a conspiracy, as you mentioned.
Yes.
And Scott, I'm beginning to think that the Clintons believe in more conspiracies than Alex Jones.
Well, I don't know who this Alex Jones is. Was he related to Shirley Jones? That's from my era. I think that there are some troubling things about this Clinton Foundation, the State Department, and the former president's relationship. When the former president Bill Clinton suggests that he needs to keep making $500,000 speeches because he's got to pay the bills. I'm wondering what kind of bills, who's running up those kind of bills that you can do 40 or 50 speeches a year at $250,000 to $500,000 a pop to pay for that. He also says that he gives to the foundation, and he does, at least according to the most recent tax records I could find. They were giving, up until 5 or 6 years ago, they were giving about 9.5% of their income to the foundation. But, since they're used to living at the poverty level, you think they could probably do a better percentage than that. And since between 2001 and 2013, Bill Clinton allegedly earned $100 million making speeches. You think that he could practically personally fund that foundation himself.
Back in the day when we lived in a time when there were political scandals just popping up right and left, Bob LaFollette was the progressive Republican from the state of Wisconsin, and he ran for president both as a Republican and on the third-party ticket as a clean government guy. And he never won, but he put his issues front and center, and other people who did win ended up picking up on it and reforming government. Who out there running for president right now can capitalize on this? Who's the clean government candidate that could say, you know what? Back in my state where I was governor, back in the Senate when I first got elected, I cleaned up government. I made things more transparent. I'm the anti-Hillary Clinton. Who's that person?
I mean, the closest, maybe Scott Walker at the moment right now, because he's got the executive experience and he has done some things there. I don't know if anybody, he went after the unions. As far as the transparency thing, I sadly think that's one of those things that everybody's immune to. It's like white noise. When politicians start talking about transparency now, I think the electorate just kind of like tunes them out and doesn't believe them anymore, because it's a lot of politicians say, well, we're going to be more transparent, we're going to be more transparent, and nobody buys that. And that's another problem here, is I think the electorate is so jaded that they start to give people passes on things like this because of the they all do it thing. And then there's going to be a lot of they all do it as a defense now coming up too. And I sadly, I don't think a lot of this is going to stick, because these people are very good at this. They're the Al Capones of this, okay? You're not going to get them on the murder. You might get them on the tax thing one day, but you're not going to get them on the murders, because they're very good at this.
Well, last week, Scott, we spent some time talking about Bernie Sanders, who, of course, is the current left-wing alternative to Hillary Clinton in the Democratic primary, but has no chance at beating her. If she keeps getting involved in stories like this, where $500,000 for a speech is the least of her worries that Bill Clinton was commanding when she was at the State Department, is this almost going to force the hand of Elizabeth Warren to jump in, where Democrats, not Republicans and independents, but Democrats say, we need a clean government person to be our nominee?
No, absolutely not. As long as Hillary Clinton's ticker is still clicking, she's in this race. Elizabeth Warren will not get into the race unless Hillary Clinton is run out of it. And I think it goes even further than the idea where people are saying, well, it's just political talk and we don't need to be worried about it, or, it's not that big of a deal or whatever. I think that the left in general wants a person like Hillary Clinton. Because what they see in Hillary Clinton, what we see as corruption, what we see as manipulating the process and the system and taking advantage of your elite position, they see as a winning recipe. They basically look at it and say, you know what? You're playing a dirty game. You need a dirty player. Put her in, coach.
Okay, I need a prediction from both of you here, because different conservative organizations have been aware for some time that Hillary Clinton certainly was going to be the front runner for the Democratic nomination and the likely nominee. So our side has been researching the Clintons and been looking into their finances and her tenure at the State Department, and this book was the first shoe to drop. This was the first real negative story that's come out about Hillary Clinton in quite some time. That's not all they have. This was the first shot across the bow. If this is what's coming out this early in the process, what are they sitting on right now to release later on in the process when people start voting, and possibly even before it's too late for the Democrats to find somebody else.
The only thing I could think of that would actually work is something very specific that destroys the whole we didn't do anything knowingly inappropriate thing, where they've got somebody recorded, where they've got somebody saying, well, okay, yes, there's got to be, if there's a smoking gun, that has to be it. The layers of security around them have to have been peeled away, and somebody with direct access or Bill or Hillary have to have said something somewhere.
Well, but there's a treasure trove of information about the Clintons out there. Go back to the California gubernatorial race a couple cycles back, where the Democrats and the unions were sitting on the illegal alien housekeeper story about Meg Whitman, and they waited until the 11th hour to put it out there, and it destroyed her campaign. She was leading in the polls up until that story breaking. You have to imagine that there is books and binders, not binders full of women, well, maybe with Bill binders full of women, but just books of stuff about the Clintons that conservative think tanks or researchers could release late in the process.
Here's the only thing that I can imagine right now, and we saw a little bit of this in 2008, is Bill Clinton isn't aware of the modern media era right now. It's very different than when he ran and when he was a full-time politician. He's not aware that every utterance of his is being recorded still. He still seems to not get that. She is a little more savvy about that. I don't think he is. There might have been something that he tossed up, because, you know, Bubba, he may well just toss it out there. We're chatting, and he doesn't know 40 people over here have him on camera.
Yeah.
So if there is something, it could be something along those lines where he said something off the cuff that was a little more damning than he thought it was, and more people were paying attention than he thought.
How about it, Scott? Do you think there's any validity to my theory?
No, absolutely not. I think you're thinking like a Republican. You know, let's be honest. You're thinking like a Republican. You're thinking that scandal and ethical problems will bring a candidate down. I was going back through my memory trying to think of the last time a Democrat candidate was taken down because of ethical problems, you know, that didn't voluntarily pull themselves out of the situation. John Edwards, was he actually taken down by that?
No, he was not in that. No, Gary Hart was the last one.
No.
Gary Hart was the last one.
Gary Hart, and here's the thing. Gary Hart did not get taken down because he was cheating. He did not get taken down because he was fornicating. He got taken down because he made a dare. He made a bet with the media, and they caught him. That was the problem. This is not, Hillary Clinton only has an ethical problem in a Republican primary, but she's not running in a Republican primary.
Well, sometimes when you gamble, you roll a 7.
It's a money line. We got to gamble. We can hope. Fingers crossed. Fingers crossed that suddenly she gets mysterious concussion symptoms again, because it's like I don't. You know, the president gets $400,000 a year in expenses too, by the way. So this whole pay the bill thing, I say, if he's making that much in the private sector, nuke his government pension.
There you go.
There was a bill before Congress to do that recently, and they didn't pass it, by the way.
That government pension, by the way, is $1.2 million a year, and I don't know if that includes Secret Service protection.
All right. That's all the time we have for today, but right now it's your turn. Are the Clintons going to wiggle their way out of this? Or is their profiteering and influence peddling finally gone too far? Tell us what you think in the comment section below. I'm John Phillips. Thanks so much for watching The Rundown.